You remember the first time you hit $20,000 saved? Maybe you stared at your account for a moment longer than usual. Something felt different. Something shifted. And if you watched our last video, you already know why that number is so powerful. It rewires your brain. It gives you breathing room. It changes the entire game. But here is what nobody told you. That shift you felt at $20,000, it doesn't stop there. In fact, what happens after $20,000 is arguably even more dramatic, and most people who finally hit that milestone have absolutely no idea what is coming next. Here's the thing most financial channels completely skip over. They spend all their time telling you how to get to $20,000. Save more, spend less, automate your investments. Great advice, solid advice, but they treat $20,000 like the finish line. Like you crossed it, collected your medal, and now you just repeat the process forever at the same pace. That is not how this works, not even close. Because here's what actually happens on the other side of $20,000. The math starts bending in your favor in ways that feel almost unfair. The psychological shifts compound just like the money does, and the gap between you and the average person who never crossed that threshold begins to widen at a speed that's genuinely difficult to explain until you experience it yourself. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the second $20,000 feels easier than the first, why the third feels almost effortless, and why at a certain point, your money stops needing you to show up for work at all. If this channel is helping you think differently about money, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. Let's get into it. Here's something that sounds almost too simple to be true. The second $20,000 is easier than the first. Not because you suddenly got more disciplined, not because your income magically increased, but because the first $20,000 is already working while you sleep. Think about what that actually means in practice. When you were pushing toward that first milestone, every single dollar came from one place. You. Your hours, your energy, your sacrifice. You were the only engine in the machine. And that's exhausting, because human beings have limits. You can only work so many hours. You can only cut so many expenses. There's a ceiling on what pure willpower can produce. But the moment you crossed $20,000, something quietly changed. You added a second engine. That $20,000 sitting in a diversified index fund, earning a historical average of around 8 to 10% annually, is now generating roughly $1,600 to $2,000 every single year on its own, without you touching it, without you thinking about it, while you're watching TV, while you're sleeping, while you're living your life. Your money clocked in and started pulling its own weight. Now here's where the mathematics become genuinely exciting. When you were saving your first $20,000, every month you contributed $1,000, that $1,000 was doing almost all of the heavy lifting. Your investment returns on a small balance were real, but they were almost invisible. An 8% return on $5,000 is $400 a year. That's $33 a month. Meaningful, but not exactly life-changing. But fast forward. You now have $20,000 invested. That same 8% is now contributing $1,600 a year to your total, which means your money is now covering more than one full month of contributions automatically. You're essentially getting a free month of savings every year just from returns alone. Vanguard's own research on long-term investor behavior confirms this pattern. Investors who push through to meaningful portfolio sizes, even modest ones in the $15,000 to $25,000 range, show dramatically higher rates of continued investing behavior. The momentum itself becomes motivating. The math becomes visible enough to feel real. This is what the financial world calls the compounding flywheel. And at $20,000, that flywheel has just started spinning. But here's the part that goes far beyond the mathematics. Most people think wealth building is a straight line. You save the same amount every month, you get the same results every month, and eventually, after decades of grinding, you arrive somewhere comfortable. That's the story most financial advice is built around. And it's wrong. Wealth building is an E-curve, a slow, almost invisible curve at the beginning that bends so sharply at a certain point that it starts to look almost vertical. And here's where the second and third major shifts happen after $20,000. Shifts that have nothing to do with your savings rates and everything to do with how your brain and your opportunities begin to change. The first shift is what I call the negotiation effect. When you had zero saved, you negotiated from desperation. You took the job offer that came. You accepted the salary they gave you. You stayed in situations that were draining you because leaving felt financially impossible. But with $20,000, you got your first taste of walking away money. You felt that shift in your posture at work. Now imagine what happens at $40,000, at $60,000, at $100,000. Every threshold you cross, your negotiating position strengthens. Research from the Journal of Financial Psychology shows that financial security directly correlates with salary negotiation confidence. People with 3 to 6 months of expenses saved negotiate starting salaries that are on average 7 to 10% higher than those without a cushion. Over a 30-year career, that single difference compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional lifetime earnings, not from investing, not from side hustles, just from having the confidence that comes from having money in the bank. Here's the actionable reality of what this means for you right now. First, every dollar you add beyond $20,000 should be split with intention. Keep your emergency fund fully funded and non-negotiable. Then direct every additional dollar into income-producing assets, index funds, dividend stocks, real estate if you have the appetite for it. The goal is to keep adding engines to the machine. Second, use your growing financial security to actively renegotiate your income. If you haven't asked for a raise in the last 12 months, you're leaving money on the table. Your $20,000 gives you the psychological foundation to have that conversation without desperation clouding your judgment. And third, start tracking your net worth monthly, not obsessively, just a simple spreadsheet. Because here's what happens when you watch the number grow. Your brain starts treating wealth building as a game you're winning rather than a sacrifice you're making, and that identity shift accelerates everything. Now, the biggest mistake people make at this stage, they hit $25,000 or $30,000 and they feel wealthy enough to reward themselves with a lifestyle upgrade, a new car, a bigger apartment, an expensive holiday they've been putting off. And look, there's nothing wrong with enjoying your money, but if that upgrade comes with a monthly payment that permanently raises your baseline expenses, you've just put a speed limiter on your flywheel at the exact moment it was starting to accelerate. And for anyone listening who's starting from zero right now or who feels behind, here's what the math actually says. A 35-year-old starting from absolute zero who saves $800 a month and earns an 8% annual return will cross $20,000 in about 24 months, will cross $100,000 in about 8 years, and will cross $500,000 before age 60 with no inheritance, no side hustle required, no secret strategy. Just time and consistency applied to the right vehicles. The curve is slow at first, but it bends. It always bends. Let's bring this all the way home. When you hit $20,000, something real changed. You felt it. Your brain shifted out of survival mode. Your options expanded. Your relationship with work, with risk, with opportunity quietly transformed. And if you haven't hit that number yet, you now understand exactly why it's worth every sacrifice it takes to get there. But here's the bigger truth this video has been building toward. $20,000 is not the destination. It's the proof of concept. It's the moment the universe shows you how this game actually works. Because once you see the flywheel spin for the first time, once you watch your money generate money without you lifting a finger, something permanent happens inside you. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to thinking about money the way you used to. And that's exactly what separates people who build lasting wealth from people who spend their entire lives working hard and arriving at retirement with almost nothing to show for it. It's not intelligence, it's not income, it's not even discipline in the traditional sense. It's the moment of genuine understanding, the moment the math stops being abstract and starts being personal. Think about where you are right now. Whether you have $500 saved or $50,000, you're somewhere on this curve, and the curve always bends. The compounding flywheel doesn't care how old you are when you start spinning it. It doesn't care about your past financial mistakes. It doesn't care that you spent your 20s buying things you don't even own anymore. It only cares about what you do starting today. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Every dollar beyond $20,000 is not just money. It's leverage. It's negotiating power. It's options you didn't have before. It's months being shaved off timelines that used to feel impossibly long. It's the second engine and the third, and eventually a whole fleet of engines running alongside you while you decide how you actually want to spend your time. The average person will never understand this. They'll keep trading hours for dollars, spending everything they earn, and wondering why the gap between them and financially free people seems to widen every year. Now you know exactly why that gap exists. And more importantly, you know which side of it you're choosing to be on. Your future self is not waiting for a windfall. They're not waiting for the perfect market conditions or the right side hustle or the ideal moment to start. They're waiting for the decision you make right now, today, about whether you're going to keep pushing that boulder up the hill until it finally crests and starts rolling on its own. Keep going. The curve is about to bend. If this video gave you a new way to think about your financial journey, subscribe so you never miss what we cover next. And drop a comment below telling me where you're at on the curve right now. Whether you're just starting or already past $20,000, I read every single one. We'll see you in the next one.